2016年第9條題目啦，就係一條科學探究嘅題目嚟嘅。今次我哋就想研究一下呢，一棵植物如果佢缺乏咗某一款嘅礦物質，對佢嘅莖啦同埋根啦嘅乾重有啲咩嘅影響嘅。咁今次我哋有一批嘅豆科植物啦，我哋就將佢擺喺一個完全嘅營養液，同埋擺喺一啲營養液就缺乏咗磷或者係缺乏咗鎂嘅。咁我哋就養佢哋12日啦，跟住咧就將佢哋嘅乾重咧就量度一下啦。呢個莖嘅乾重咧，我哋有3個數據；根嘅乾重咧，我哋都有3個數據嘅。咁而家 Part A 啦就講啦，要我哋去簡單地描述一下，我哋係點樣去獲得一棵植物嘅乾重咧？咁呢條題目啦，考我哋嘅第一樣嘢就係咩叫乾重先？乾重咧就係一隻生物嘅屍體，我哋就將佢嘅水分完全抽乾佢，呢個就係乾重。題目就叫我哋簡單描述一下如何量度個乾重，所以我哋就要 recall 翻啲 procedures 啲步驟啦。首先啦，我哋要將隻生物去加熱，擺喺一個輕輕高於100度嘅焗爐嗰處去蒸乾啲水分佢。有啲書咧就唔係講輕輕高於100度嘅，就係講係大約105度，嗱都係可以嘅。直至幾時先？直至到啦，佢嗰個生物嘅質量咧係不再改變為止啦，亦即係話咧啲水分已經蒸走咗，而我哋所獲得嘅咧應該係佢嘅生物質量，佢嘅乾重啦。而答案咧，我哋有樣嘢要留意嘅，就唔好直接抄翻書本咧。heating 個 organism 或者 drying 個 organism 或者整乾隻生物。今次隻生物係有名嘅，就係啲豆科植物啊。所以啦，就 dry 呢個 harvest 嘅 plant， 即係話將呢啲收割咗嘅植物咧去蒸乾佢，或者蒸乾呢一啲豆科植物都得啦。我咧就講 at around 100度，咁書就話啦，輕輕高於100度，或者頭先我所講嘅大約105度咧都係正確嘅。直至到幾時？直至到咧佢個質量係不變為止啦。咁呢條題目啦，有啲咩變奏呢？第一個變奏咧就係問下我哋啦，究竟有啲咩條件去幫我哋去選擇一個適當嘅成長參數，去量度一隻生物嘅成長嘅乾重啦、鮮重啦、佢嘅高度啦，咁其實都係一啲成長參數嚟噶嘛。咁你點揀呢？第二啦，就係講下咧，利用乾重作為一個成長嘅參數，究竟有啲咩嘅好處同埋壞處啦？咁呢啲咧都喺書本可以讀翻嚟嘅。例如啦，你飲多咗水，你個人係重咗噶嘛？咁我可唔可以話你成長咗啦，好犀利啊？咁我又可唔可以話啦？你屙完督尿之後咧，你個人輕咗，你嘅成長咧就差咗啦，放慢咗啦，咁又可唔可以咧？咁啊，過往啦都有好多嘅 MC 題目咧，都係考下大家有關於成長嘅。咁啊，由12年開始去到19年啦，其實之前都講過下噶啦。咁啊，無論係植物啦，定係人類啦，大家都可以溫翻書嘅。好，跟住去到 Part B 題目就講啦，呢個豆科植物咧，當佢喺一個欠缺鎂嘅情況底下成長咧，佢個葉咧係會呈現黃色嘅。就問下我哋點解啲葉係會黃色呢？咁其實成條題目就係考緊我哋一棵植物啦，鎂呢款元素究竟有咩嘅功能啦？呢個圖表咧喺書你一定揾到噶啦。鎂呢款元素喺泥土咧係以鎂嘅離子咧去出現嘅，咁啊溶於水啦，就俾棵植物嘅根部去吸收啦。咁佢呢棵植物嘅功能咧就係合成葉綠素，而葉綠素係綠色噶嘛，係咪？咁題目就講啊嘛，欠缺鎂質嘅情況底下成長塊葉咧就會呈現黃色。點解我哋就將佢反其道而行咯？由於棵植物喺一個冇咗鎂質嘅情況底下咧去成長嘅，所以棵植物就製造唔到葉綠素，所以塊葉就係黃色啦。呢條題目係非常之直接噶啦。咁下次啦，呢條題目都可能會問下你噶啦。喺棵植物咧，佢要吸收鎂質噶嘛？佢用咩形式去吸收呢個鎂質嘅咧？原來啦就係鎂嘅離子啦。又或者下次反翻轉問你啦，當一棵植物欠缺咗鎂質嘅時候，塊葉會呈現一個咩嘅顏色呢？再要你解釋埋嘅話呢，咁就變成2分噶啦噃。跟住啦，去到第2部分啦，題目就要我哋利用呢個現象。個現象係咩啊？棵植物喺一個缺乏鎂質嘅情況底下成長，塊葉係會形成黃色嘅。就要我哋解釋下呢棵植物嘅根部啦，同埋莖部咧，佢嘅乾重 究竟有啲咩咁特別呢？所以呢條題目呢，就考我哋分析下數據咯，因為要我哋解釋個結果啊嘛。個結果呢，就係翻呢兩幅圖個樹啦。一棵植物啦，欠缺咗鎂質嘅話啦，佢個根同莖呢，個乾重呢，都係好低嘅，低過一棵植物喺完全嘅營養液度成長。咁點樣比較下呢？跟住要我哋解釋啊嘛，自不然啦，就梗係有啲 concept 要考我哋噶啦。鎂質頭先我哋喺 Part B1 已經講咗噶啦，係棵植物嘅功能咧就係製造葉綠素。咁製造葉綠素啦，對於一棵植物有咩咁緊要咧？就係吸光。咁吸光為乜嘢啊？做光合作用。咁光合作用嘅重要性就係製造嘢食。咁製造嘢食嘅呢個概念同棵植物嘅成長，再推多一步就同呢棵植物嘅根同莖嘅乾重有啲咩嘅關係呢？所以你見得到呢個邏輯係層層遞進嘅。咁講完呢個題目啦，考我哋啲乜嘢呢？我哋就講下分數嘅配置咯。呢個題目啦，就要我哋去解釋個結果。但係題目有冇講過俾你聽個結果呢？佢有冇喺個文字嗰度去講啦？要我哋解釋一下呢棵植物嘅莖同埋根嘅乾重呢，係低過喺完全營養液成長嘅豆科植物，冇講過。所以你要先去話俾我聽個結果係乜嘢，呢度係1分，而其餘嗰2分就係解釋啦。關於去睇得穿條題目嘅分數配置呢，就睇翻傳視技能呢段片咯。咁呢條題目啦，個思考鷹架應該點樣做呢？其實佢係一條因果題，因為一棵植物喺一個缺乏鎂質嘅情況底下去成長，從而啦就影響咗佢嘅乾重。因呢就係個現象，而個果呢就係呢個豆科植物嘅根同莖嘅乾重啦。所以第一樣嘢你要提及嘅就係個現象。佢係有黃色嘅葉，係因為佢欠缺葉綠素。咁欠缺葉綠素同棵植物嘅乾重有咩關係呢？你就要比較下實驗裝置同埋對照裝置啦。今次呢條題目嘅實驗裝置呢，就係缺乏鎂質嘅呢個裝置，而有完全嘅營養液呢，就係一個對照裝置。所以第1分解釋結果嘅就係，當一棵植物欠缺葉綠素嘅時候，從而就導致到呢棵植物嘅莖同埋根嘅乾重，相比起我哋嘅對照裝置，或者一棵植物浸咗喺完全營養液底下呢，佢嘅乾重係低咗嘅。講咗個結果1分啦，跟住我哋就爭呢，就係生物學嘅解釋啦，而正正就係頭先我哋講過嘅邏輯扣連啦，冇咗葉綠素，對佢個光合作用有咩影響呢？光合作用對於整嘢食又有咩關係呢？所以啦，當一棵植物欠缺葉綠素，佢嘅光合作用就會慢咗，整唔夠嘢食嘅話啦，佢嘅成長都會大打折扣。所以呢棵植物嘅莖同埋根嘅乾重呢，都會比起對照裝置嚟講呢係輕嘅。好，跟住我哋讀 Part C 第一部分，要我哋做解釋。解釋啲乜嘢呢？就係解釋下一棵植物，如果佢喺一個缺乏磷嘅情況底下成長，同埋佢喺一個有完全營養液嘅情況底下成長，佢哋嘅整體嘅乾重有啲咩嘅分別呢？咁所以你會發現呢條題目呢，係考緊我哋第一就係做比較啦。第二啦，就真係解釋下啦，又要用翻生物科嘅知識啦。今次要做比較呢，就比較翻一個對照裝置有完全營養液浸住嘅植物啦，同埋啦缺乏磷嘅營養液所去生長嘅植物啦。咁今次呢，我哋要睇嘅係整體嘅乾重，就唔需要將個莖啊同埋根啊分開睇，就當一齊睇啦。咁我哋先睇下莖啦，喺完全營養液所成長嘅植物呢，佢哋係比起缺乏磷嘅植物呢，係生長得重好多嘅。咁但係喺個根嘅情況底下呢，佢哋嘅重量就差無幾。雖然根係差無幾啫，但係莖呢就真係相差甚遠啊嘛。所以啦，佢嗰個整體嘅乾重呢，應該喺缺乏磷嘅情況底下，佢係生長得差啲啦。佢嗰個乾重呢，亦都係低一啲嘅。但係題目要我哋解釋啊嘛，係咪？第一分呢，大家一定講到嘅，就係呢缺乏磷嘅情況底下，佢嘅 overall dry mass 咪會輕一啲啦，係咪？但係你要去解釋啊嘛。咁好多同學佢當佢哋解釋嘅時候咧，佢就會講啦，因為磷咧呢一款元素對於個植物成長係好緊要噶。句號， 鬼唔知磷對植物成長好緊要咩？但係今次題目都係考埋我哋磷嘅功能啊嘛，配合埋今次呢條題目係講緊佢哋嘅乾重啊嘛，即係佢哋嘅成長參數啊嘛，係咪？咁所以我哋要講嘅就係磷對於一棵植物成長嘅重要性。所以下面呢一定要講翻磷呢，對於棵植物嚟講，佢要整蛋白質啦，整呢個核酸啦，同埋整 ATP 咧，係一個重要嘅元素嚟嘅。而呢幾樣嘢對於植物嘅成長係好緊要嘅。所以今次呢個題目呢，第一分係容易攞嘅，第二分呢，你就要識得將磷同埋佢嘅乾重拉上關係啦。跟住啦，去到第二部分啦，就有關於一個假說嘅。咁佢就講啦，磷呢款元素呢，就會抑制咗一棵植物佢由個葉去傳遞一啲光合作用嘅產物去到條根嗰樹嘅。咁根據翻呢個假說，就要我哋去解釋下啦。喺一個欠缺磷嘅情況底下，咁佢哋嘅莖嘅乾重同埋根嘅乾重個結果點解會係咁嘅呢？都係講緊一分，就係講個結果，因為題目喺呢一句指示，佢冇講到俾你聽啦。哦，原來喺個莖呢缺乏磷嘅情況底下呢，佢係輕過係一個完全嘅營養液嘅乾重呢，就同喺一個完全嘅營養液成長嘅植物呢，就差唔多喎。highlight 咗嘅呢個紫色嘅部分，佢冇講到噶嘛，即係你要講啦。所以啦，又係考翻我哋比較啦，跟住啦又要講下呢，究竟佢考緊我哋咩概念咯？喺個光合作用所產生嘅產物，最基本嘅就係碳水化合物啦。咁碳水化合物同個植物嘅成長又有咩關係呢？亦都同我哋嘅莖同埋根嘅乾重又有咩嘅關係呢？所以啦，成個鷹架咧都係講因與果嘅。個因呢就係個假說，咁咧就能夠抑制到光合作用嘅產物嘅運輸嘅，即係話啦，當佢有磷嘅時候，亦即係一個完全嘅營養液啦。啲碳水化合物係唔能夠由塊葉運送到去條根嗰樹嘅。相反啦，喺一個冇磷嘅呢個元素嘅情況底下呢，咁其實啲碳水化合物係能夠由個植物嘅葉呢就運到去條根嗰樹。咁你就諗下啦，即係話喺一個有磷嘅情況底下呢，條根係攞唔到嘢食嘅。但係喺一個缺乏磷嘅情況底下呢，條根係攞到嘢食嘅。咁我哋又嚟做下比較，你就知發生乜嘢事啦。有因同有果就係一分啦，中間嗰兩分就係生物學嘅解釋啦。喺冇磷嘅情況底下，多啲碳水化合物嘅產物係能夠由葉運到去條根嗰樹。咁即係話條根能夠接收到多啲嘅碳水化合物啦，即係啲整咗出嚟嘅嘢食啦，係咪？咁自不然啦，佢哋有多啲嘢食，佢哋嘅成長都會好一啲啦。所以根嘅乾重對比起一棵植物喺完全營養液去生存嘅根部呢，佢哋嘅重量係差無幾嘅。相反啦，喺一個欠缺磷嘅情況底下，由於啲碳水化合物係能夠由葉運送到去條根嗰樹啊嘛，亦即係話塊葉自己呢就少咗嘢食啦。所以莖嘅乾重呢就會低過喺對照裝置嘅莖嘅乾重啦。好，又嚟到一點出發啦。今次呢個題目呢就問缺乏礦物質嘅，當中有兩個概念呢考我哋。第一就係光合作用，第二就係運輸。光合作用有關於呢就係鎂嘅呢一款元素啦，佢同葉綠素有關係啦，而葉綠素啦亦都攞嚟吸光進行光解嘅反應嘅，將個水去拆解，而當我哋得出氫嘅呢個原子呢，佢就會去到我哋嘅暗反應，又或者我哋講嘅碳固定啦，係做碳水化合物嘅。第二啦，就去到運輸啦，就關磷事啦。來啦，當有磷嘅情況底下呢，原來係會抑制咗棵植物將啲碳水化合物呢由個葉運去根嘅。有關於運輸呢，又可以問下你維管組織啦。究竟啲嘢食喺邊度運噶？自不然係由我哋嘅韌皮部 phloem vessel 去運送啦，係咪？而呢個題目啦，都再問嘅呢就係植物嘅成長啦，就係成長參數。今次主要考我哋嘅呢就係乾重。 咁仲有線重啦，仲有佢嘅長闊高啦，塊葉嘅表面面積啦，係有好多參數俾你去揀嘅。咁所以頭先咧，我哋都有講過題目嘅變奏啦。幾時去選擇用邊一款嘅成長參數去做一個量度呢？咁除咗之前提過嘅 DSE 題目啦，咁過往會考題目咧都有問到嘅。咁以下啦，邊一個呢？係一個相對上可信嘅參數，係幫我哋量度一個人嘅成長呢？試下嘅話呢，就喺樓下留低你嘅答案啦，睇下你識唔識咯噃。當我哋要量度植物嘅成長嘅時候，其實都係一個科學探究。而有關於科學探究啦，問到口臭嘅就係3個變項啦。而我都借助今次呢條題目咧，去解說翻實驗裝置同埋對照裝置嘅分別啦噃。2016 question 9 is about the scientific investigation. We are going to study the effect of mineral deficiency on shoot and root dry masses. And the bean plant was grown in a complete nutrient solution or a nutrient solution without either phosphorus or magnesium for 12 days, respectively. For there will be 6 data. 3 data for the shoot in the complete nutrient solution, magnesium deficiency and phosphate deficiency, and the other 3 data for the root dry masses. And in part A, we need to briefly describe how the dry mass of a plant can be determined. This question, the first concept is being checked is the definition of the dry mass. The dry mass is the mass when all water is removed from the organism. Meanwhile, the question is asking us to briefly describe how can we do the measurement. That's why we need to recall the procedures of measuring the dry mass of an organism. The dry mass can be found by heating an organism in an oven at slightly above 100 degrees Celsius, or in some other book it say that at around 105 degrees Celsius, until a constant mass is obtained. So you can refer to the answer, dry the harvest plants. Now remember that in this question, we are really studying the bean plants. Therefore, you cannot just simply recite something from the book or heating or drying an organism in an oven. Not the organism, be specific, the harvest plant or the bean plant in an oven at around 100 degrees Celsius until a constant mass is obtained upon repeated rating. So for the temperature, slightly above 100 degrees Celsius, at around 100 degrees Celsius or 105 degrees Celsius are also okay. So any possible question variation? First, it will ask you any criteria to choose the suitable growth parameter, such as dry mass, fresh mass, or height, to measure the growth of a particular organism. The other type of variation, it can ask you to state the advantages and disadvantages of using the dry mass as the growth parameter to measure the growth. So you can find these concepts in the textbook. For example, for the fresh mass, if you drink more water, your fresh mass will increase. So can I say that, you grow rapidly after you go to toilet to remove the urine? So can I say that, your fresh mass drops? It means that your growth is very slowly, or even you are not growing. And there are different questions about the growth or the growth parameter in the past. So you can refer to the MC, no matter it's about the human being or the plants. So do revision. Question B is found that the leaves of the bean plant grow under the magnesium deficient conditions appear yellow. And part B1 it asks that why did the leaves appear yellow? So this question is checking the function of magnesium in the plant. So you can find this table in the textbook. You can find the element magnesium and the major form in the soil, and then the main function, that's for the synthesis of chlorophyll, and chlorophyll which is in green color. This question gives you the situation that the plant is growing under the magnesium deficient condition. So we need to talk about without the magnesium, the plant cannot produce the chlorophyll, leaving the leaves yellow. In this table, there are different types of question variation. For example, it can ask you the major form of the magnesium element in the soil, which is the magnesium iron. It can dissolve in water and being absorbed by the root. And it can also ask you the deficiency symptom. This question, it tells you that the leaves will become yellow under the magnesium deficient condition. But what about next time it asks you that explain what will happen to the leaves? So you need to tell me that, the leaves, they will appear yellow, and what is the reason behind that? And for part B2, using this phenomenon is say that the leaves of the bean grow under magnesium deficient conditions appear yellow. To explain the result of the shoot dry mass and root dry mass of the bean plant under magnesium deficiency condition. This question, it checks out the critical skills. How can we analyze the data in these two graphs? And for the concept checking, from part B1, we need to realize the function of magnesium in the plant for synthesis of chlorophyll. For the chlorophyll, we need to recall the function light absorption. For what? For photosynthesis. And for photosynthesis, what is the importance of photosynthesis? To produce the food. Then we need to relate the photosynthetic rate to the growth of the plant, and then we extend the concept, relate the growth of the plants to the shoot dry mass and the root dry mass. After we talk about the critical concept and concept checking, we need to know about the mark allocation. For this question, it asks us to explain the result. However, we need to think about that. Does the question tell you the result? It doesn't tell you the result. The result, they are in the graph, but not in the question. It doesn't ask you that to explain why the shoot dry mass and root dry mass is lower than the control setup. It doesn't tell you that. That's why you need to state the result. Dry mass will become lower than that of the control setup. It is for the first mark. For the 2 marks, you need to do the explanation. So you can watch the video for the synoptic skills. So for the scaffolding, this question is the cause and effect question. The cause is the phenomenon. The leaf appear yellow. And the effect is the dry mass of the shoot and the root of the bean plant. You need to think about that. The phenomenon is the yellow leaf. That means the lack of chlorophyll. And lack of chlorophyll, it leads to the effect. Then we need to compare the experimental setup and the control setup. Talk about it in the last video. Magnesium deficiency. This setup is the experimental setup. And the complete nutrient solution is the control setup. So we can state the result. Without the chlorophyll, both the shoot and root dry mass are smaller than that of the control setup, or then grow in the complete nutrient solution. But what about the biological explanation? You need to refer to the concept checking. We need to think about the chlorophyll. We need to think about the photosynthesis. We need to think about the growth of the plant. So the whole story is the rate of photosynthesis of the plant is lowered. As a result, there is not enough food produced for the growth of the plant. Therefore, there will be less food stored in the plant, and after we remove all the water, the dry mass will become lower. So in part C1, we need to explain the difference in the overall dry mass of the plant grow under phosphate deficiency conditions, and that's in the complete nutrient condition. So you can see that we are going to do the comparison between the control setup and the experimental setup. So the concept checking, we need to recall the function of the phosphorus in the plant, because all the students, they can talk about the first mark. Overall dry mass of the plant under phosphorus deficient condition is much smaller. So you can see that this question is asking overall dry mass. Therefore, we do not need to talk about the shoot dry mass and root dry mass separately. We just combine them together to take a look. So for the shoot dry mass, phosphate deficiency, you can see the dry mass is much lower than that in the complete nutrient solution. For the root dry mass, for the phosphate deficiency, the dry mass is more or less the same as that in the complete nutrient solution. And we combine the data together, we can see that the overall dry mass of the plant under phosphate deficient condition is much smaller. Some students, they just explain that because the phosphorus, they are important for the plant growth. Sure, it is important for the plant growth, but you need to recall the importance of the phosphorus for the plant growth. Therefore, you need to talk about that phosphorus is necessary for the formation of proteins, nucleic acid, and for the ATP, which are important for the growth. So you need to relate the dry mass to the growth. And in part C2 is about the hypothesis. It was hypothesized that phosphorus, it will inhibit the export of photosynthetic products, for example, the carbohydrates from the leaves to the root. And we use this hypothesis to explain the result of the shoot dry mass and the root dry mass of the bean plant under phosphate deficiency condition. So in this question, just like the part B, we need to talk about the mark allocation. For this question, explain the result. The question itself, it doesn't talk about the result for us. Therefore, we need to state the result and then 2 marks for the explanation. So for the critical skills, we need to do the comparison again. For the graph reading, we need to compare the experimental setup, phosphate deficiency, to the control setup, complete nutrient solution. And for the concept checking, we need to relate the carbohydrates content to the growth of the plant. And we need to relate the growth of the plant to the shoot dry mass and root dry mass. So for the scaffolding, it's also the cause and effect question. The cause is the hypothesis. If there is phosphorus, it will inhibit the export of the photosynthetic products from leaves to the root. So in this case, it is the control setup, complete nutrient solution. It contains phosphorus as well, right? So the carbohydrates from the leaves cannot be transported to the root. And for the deficiency of the phosphorus, that means in the experimental setup, so the carbohydrates from the leaves can be transported to the root. So what about the effect? So we need to do the comparison. And so as I mentioned before, under the phosphate deficiency conditions, the dry mass of the shoot is lower than that in the complete nutrient solution. The root case, the dry mass are more or less the same in both setups. And then what we need is the explanation. We need to think about the relationship among the carbohydrates, growth, and the dry mass. Without the phosphate, the more photosynthetic product is transported from leaves to the root. As a result, the shoot dry mass is a lot lower than that of the control, while the root dry mass maintains more or less the same in the control setup. So let's talk about the curriculum mapping. This question, it starts from the mineral deficiency and it tests us 2 concepts. One, photosynthesis. The second one is the transport. For the photosynthesis, we talk about the magnesium, and the magnesium is used to produce the chlorophyll, and chlorophyll is responsible for the light absorption for the photolysis reaction in the photosynthesis. The water is broken down into oxygen gas and the hydrogen atom, and the hydrogen atom will enter the Calvin cycle or the carbon fixation to produce the carbohydrates. For the transport, it's about the hypothesis, talking about the phosphates. So can the plant transport the carbohydrates from leaves to the root? And when we talk about the transport of the organic food, we need to talk about the vascular tissues, especially the phloem vessels, right? And then we talk about the plant growth and the growth parameter, size, fresh mass, and dry mass. And not just for the DSE question, but also for the CE question, it can also ask you the growth parameter. Which of the following is the relative reliable parameter for measuring the growth of a person? Look at the question and try it, and then type your answer in the comment section. For the measurement of the plant growth, it is a type of scientific investigation. Apart from the 3 variables, IV, DV, CV, I would like to grab this chance to talk about the experimental setup and the control setup.